We often find ourselves thinking about the future, about time passing and what will happen to us as we grow older. It is normal for this thought to give us worries, precisely because the future is uncertain and we are afraid of what may happen to us. Just as we do, so too did Riku, the main character in our story, live constantly distressed by the fear of growing old. But thanks to the advice of a wise Zen master, he was able to make peace with himself and live a full and joyful life. If you are enjoying this video and want to support this channel, I invite you to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and share this beautiful story with your friends. And if you would like to share your thoughts with us, you can leave a comment below and tell us about your experience. And now to our story. In a picturesque coastal village, amid the waves lapping the shore and the salty scent of the ocean, lived a man named Riku. He was tormented by an unrelenting fear, the fear of growing old. Every day as he watched the sun dip into the horizon, the thought of aging assailed him like a sinister shadow, clouding his joy in life. Riku decided that he had to find a solution to this anguish numbing his soul. With unsteady but determined steps, he walked toward the temple where the wise Zen master Takumi resided, hoping to find solace and wisdom to overcome his obsession. When Riku reached the temple, Takumi greeted him kindly and listened patiently to his concerns. Then, in a calm and wise voice, he began to dispense his Buddhist teachings, offering Riku 8 valuable pieces of advice to free himself from the fear of aging and death. Takumi's first teaching, mindfulness of the present moment, is a fundamental principle in Buddhism and also in Zen practice. This teaching invites us to be fully present in the here and now, abandoning worries about the past or future, and focusing instead on the reality of the present moment. For Riku, this teaching meant learning to let go of anxieties about the future and fears related to aging, focusing instead on the experiences and joys that life offered him in each moment. Takumi explained that constantly worrying about the passage of time and the uncertainties of the future only prevented Riku from fully experiencing the present. To illustrate this concept, Takumi led Riku to the ocean shore at sunset. There, as they watched the sun dipping into the horizon and the sky turning red and orange, Takumi encouraged Riku to let go of all thoughts and fully immerse himself in the beauty of the present moment. As they sat on the damp sand, Riku began to hear the soothing sound of waves crashing on the shore and the salty scent of the ocean filling his senses. For the first time in a long time, Riku felt at peace, free from the worries of the future and able to appreciate the simple beauty of life. Takumi guided Riku through a short meditation, encouraging him to focus on the breath and let go of every thought that came to mind. In that moment of deep awareness, Riku felt completely present in the here and now, free from anxieties and fears. From that day on, Riku made mindfulness of the present moment his daily practice. Whenever the fear of aging threatened to overwhelm him, he would stop and focus on the breath, reconnecting with the present moment and finding inner peace. Over time, this practice helped him embrace life with gratitude and joy, knowing that each moment was a precious gift to be lived fully. Takumi's second teaching is about accepting the transitory nature of life, known as impermanence. This teaching reminds us that everything in life is bound to change, whether joy or sorrow, health or illness, youth or old age. Resisting this inevitable flow only brings suffering, while accepting impermanence allows us to find peace and serenity. For Riku, this teaching meant embracing change rather than fighting it. Takumi explained to him that the fear of aging and death stemmed from the illusion of control and resistance to change. Accepting the impermanence of life would allow Riku to live more lightly and serenely, freeing him from the chains of fear and anxiety about the future. To illustrate this concept, Takumi led Riku to a flower garden inside the temple there. As they watched the flowers bloom and wither, Takumi explained to him that just as flowers follow the natural cycle of life, human beings are also subject to the same law of impermanence. Riku looked at the flowers with new eyes, appreciating their fleeting beauty and accepting their inevitable fate. In that moment, he understood that just like flowers, youth and vitality are ephemeral, but that the true beauty of life lies precisely in its impermanence. From that day forward, Riku embraced the impermanence of life as a natural part of human existence. Whenever he felt overwhelmed by the fear of aging, he would stop and remember that everything in life is bound to change, and that resisting the flow of change only brought suffering. By accepting the impermanence of life, Riku found a new freedom and serenity, allowing him to live each moment with gratitude and joy. Takumi's third teaching concerns compassion, a central principle in Buddhism that teaches us to connect with others through love and kindness. Takumi explained to Riku that the fear of aging and loneliness can be mitigated through the practice of compassion, as it allows us to share our experiences and emotions with others, thus creating a sense of belonging and connection. For Riku, this teaching meant learning to extend his hand to others and to offer his own support and kindness. Takumi explained to him that the act of sharing one's experience and emotions with others not only relieved loneliness, but also allowed one to discover a sense of meaning and belonging in one's life. To illustrate this concept, Takumi took Riku to the village market. There, as they strolled among the stalls of merchants and curious patrons, Takumi asked him to carefully observe the people around them. Riku noticed an elderly merchant struggling to carry heavy bags of goods from one side of the market to the other. Takumi asked Riku to approach and offer his help to the elderly man. Riku hesitated at first, but then decided to follow the Zen master's advice. With kindness and compassion, he approached the elderly merchant and offered his help in transporting the goods. The elderly merchant gratefully accepted Riku's help, and together they worked side by side, sharing smiles and kind words along the way. As they carried the heavy sacks, Riku felt a sense of connection and belonging toward the elderly merchant, and he realized that he too needed to share his experiences and emotions with others. After finishing the work, Riku thanked the elderly merchant for allowing him to help him and share that special moment together. As they walked away from the market, Riku felt lighter in heart, knowing that even in the approaching years, compassion and kindness toward others are a beacon of light in the dark, capable of illuminating the path of life. Takumi's fourth teaching concerns gratitude, a fundamental principle in Buddhism that teaches us to appreciate what we have instead of focusing on what we lack. Takumi explained to Riku that cultivating gratitude allows one to find inner peace and serenity in aging, as it reminds us that even in the challenges and difficulties of life, there is always something to appreciate and be thankful for. For Riku, this teaching meant learning to see the beauty and richness of one's life, despite the challenges and uncertainties that aging may bring. Takumi explained to him that even in approaching years, there is always something to appreciate and thank, whether it is a kind smile, a loving gesture, or a moment of peace and tranquility. To illustrate this concept, Takumi took Riku to contemplate the beauty of the village around them. Together they walked through the narrow, winding streets, watching the smiles of children playing happily, the warmth of the sun on their skin, and the scent of wildflowers filling the air. As they walked, Takumi asked Riku to stop and reflect on all the wonderful things life had given him. Riku carefully observed the world around him and began to notice the little things he often took for granted. The birds singing in the morning, the smell of freshly baked bread, the warmth of a friendly hand. At that moment, Riku understood that even in approaching years, there was always something to appreciate, and gratitude became a source of strength and consolation for him, enabling him to face the challenges of aging with courage and dignity. From that day on, Riku cultivated gratitude as a daily practice. Every night before falling asleep, he would stop and reflect on all the wonderful things life had given him and give thanks for every little miracle. Over time, this practice enabled him to find inner peace and serenity in aging, knowing that even in life's challenges, there was always something to appreciate and give thanks for. Takumi's fifth teaching is about non-attachment, a crucial concept in Buddhism that teaches us to free ourselves from expectations and desire in order to find inner freedom. Takumi explained to Riku that attachment to the past, material things or preconceived ideas, only brings suffering, while non-attachment allows us to live more lightly and freely, accepting the natural flow of life. For Riku, this teaching meant learning to let go of what he could not control and to accept change as a natural part of human existence. Takumi explained to him that fear of aging often stemmed from attachment to youth, health, or beauty, but that freeing himself from these expectations would allow Riku to live with greater peace and serenity. To illustrate this concept, Takumi took Riku to the cliff, where together they watched the waves crash against the rocks. Takumi asked him to carefully observe the movement of the waves and note how they never clung to the shore, but flowed freely with the ebb and flow of the tides. Takumi explained that just as the waves do not cling to the shore, so too should we learn not to cling to the past, expectations, or desire. Attachment only brings suffering, while non-attachment allows us to flow with the natural flow of life, accepting change with serenity and peace. Riku understood that freeing himself from attachment would allow him to face aging with greater courage and dignity, accepting the passage of time as a natural part of his journey. From that day forward, Riku practiced non-attachment as a path to inner freedom, letting go of expectations and desire to embrace life with openness and gratitude. Takumi's sixth teaching is about kindness, a fundamental principle in Buddhism that teaches us to treat ourselves and others with love and compassion. Takumi explained to Riku that practicing kindness not only brings joy to others, but also inner peace and serenity in aging. For Riku, this teaching meant learning to cultivate kindness toward himself and others, even in the challenges and difficulties of aging. Takumi explained to him that the act of sharing kindness and compassion with others not only relieved loneliness, but also allowed people to discover a sense of meaning and belonging in their lives. To illustrate this concept, Takumi took Riku to a shelter for abandoned animals. There, as they observed the animals seeking affection and comfort, Takumi asked him to approach one of the dogs that seemed particularly shy and frightened. Riku hesitated at first, but then decided to follow the Zen master's advice. With kindness and compassion, he slowly approached the dog and offered his hand in friendship. The dog, wary at first, began to sniff Riku's hand and then slowly approached him, seeking comfort and security. Takumi smiled as he observed the scene and then explained to Riku that even in the challenges of aging, kindness and compassion toward oneself and others are a beacon of light in the dark, capable of illuminating the path of life. Riku understood that practicing kindness would enable him to face aging with greater courage and dignity, creating meaningful connections and nurturing his heart with love and compassion. From that day forward, Riku committed himself to cultivating kindness as a daily practice, spreading love and hope wherever he went, and finding inner peace and serenity in aging. Takumi's seventh teaching is about equanimity, a fundamental principle in Buddhism that teaches us to accept life calmly and serenely, regardless of external circumstances. Takumi explained to Riku that cultivating equanimity allows us to maintain inner peace even in the face of the challenges and difficulties of aging, as it enables us to face life with wisdom and acceptance. For Riku, this teaching meant learning to maintain calm and serenity even in the face of adversity and difficulties in life. Takumi explained to him that the practice of equanimity would enable him to face aging with courage and dignity, accepting the passage of time with serenity and acceptance. To illustrate this concept, Takumi took Riku to a forest near the temple. There, as they walked among the majestic trees and the ground covered with dry leaves, Takumi asked him to carefully observe the nature around him. Riku noticed how the trees remained steadfast, even in the face of the most violent storms, and how the dried leaves danced in the wind without resistance. Takumi explained that just as nature is balanced between light and dark, so too could he find balance in his journey toward aging. Takumi reminded him that even in the face of the challenges and difficulties of aging, the practice of equanimity would enable him to remain calm and serene, accepting life with wisdom and acceptance. Riku understood that cultivating equanimity would enable him to face aging with greater courage and dignity, accepting the passage of time as a natural part of his journey. From that day forward, Riku committed himself to cultivating equanimity as a daily practice, finding inner peace and serenity in aging, regardless of external circumstances. Takumi's eighth and final teaching is about wisdom, a fundamental principle in Buddhism that teaches us to cultivate mindfulness and understanding to find inner peace and enlightenment. Takumi explained to Riku that the practice of meditation and reflection would enable him to face aging with wisdom and acceptance, finding the inner peace needed to live with serenity and joy. For Riku, this teaching meant learning to cultivate awareness and understanding through the practice of meditation and reflection. Takumi explained to him that wisdom is not something to be attained, but rather an ongoing process of learning and growth that leads to deeper understanding of life and self. To illustrate this concept, Takumi invited Riku to meditate in the temple. There, sitting quietly in front of the altar, Takumi guided Riku through a short meditation, encouraging him to focus on the sensation of the breath and to let go of any thoughts that came to mind. During the meditation, Riku began to feel calmness and serenity spread within him as his mind quieted down and his worries faded into nothingness. In that moment of deep awareness, Riku felt in touch with his true nature and the very fabric of the universe. Takumi explained that through the practice of meditation and reflection, Riku would be able to develop the wisdom needed to accept the passage of time with grace and serenity, finding the inner peace needed to live with joy and gratitude. Riku understood that cultivating wisdom would enable him to face aging with courage and dignity, accepting life with wisdom and understanding. From that day forward, Riku committed himself to cultivating wisdom as a daily practice, finding inner peace and serenity in aging, regardless of external circumstances. After absorbing these valuable teachings, Riku returned to his village with a light heart and a peaceful mind. Every day, as he watched the sea and felt the warmth of the sun on his skin, he remembered Master Takumi's wise words and knew that he would face aging with courage and dignity. As the years passed, Riku became a beacon of inspiration to the villagers, spreading Buddhist wisdom and living each day with gratitude and joy. And when time finally called him to himself, Riku let go with a serene smile, knowing that he had lived a life full of meaning and love.